Hello everyone, good early morning from Alaska. These are the 4 pillars of the ministry Yah has given me. Preach the full gospel of Yahshua, Jesus, the Messiah on college campuses and universities. Of course, it's the winter break now. College campuses have either they're in final exams or they've stopped for the holidays. So I'm up here in Juneau right now to expose satanic pedophiles to investigative reporting on my YouTube channel. Provide satanic ritual abuse survivors a platform to speak out on, and protect the innocent children. So if you're new to my channel, these are always in the links below my video as well. To access those links, you just click on the little down arrow. It'll unfold the description box if you have a handheld device, or you click on the little thing that says show more. All right, lots of stuff to get into again. Good morning. It is December 11th, Tuesday morning. It is the 4th day of the 9th Hebrew month. So there is an article I want to get to that I'm going to link right below this video. It just came out today, where during the counterfeit Hanukkah, the satanic pedophile Talmudic Jews have done a rehearsal of the stone altar for the coming third temple. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be said about this, and there's a lot of layers and a lot of disinformation out there, even in the truth movement, that needs to be cleared up and clarified through the scriptures and through the understanding of the Holy Spirit. First of all, in Revelation chapter 11, it does talk about how Israel, Jerusalem itself, will be as Sodom and as Egypt. It's the place where the 2 witnesses will be murdered. It's the place where the son of perdition will be ruling and reigning from an apostate temple up until that earthquake happens, in which 7,000 are killed. That temple, of course, is destroyed. And then we read in Daniel 11 where that son of perdition then moves his tabernacle between the sea and Mount Zion. And of course, he meets his end there as well, to the true Messiah of Israel. And that's what I want to get into, because so many people are focused on how wicked Israel is. Satan can only do that which Yah allows him to do. So the formation of Israel after 1900 years in 1948 and the retaking of Jerusalem in 1967, these were glorious and wonderful things that Yah ordained. Just because there are counterfeit and satanic Talmudic pedophiles that control the nation state of Israel does not in any way mean that you throw all the baby out with the bathwater. In fact, it doesn't even come down to bloodlines. People are saying, oh, Daniel, what about these Khazar Jews? What about this, that? Forget the bloodlines. Forget it. Torah is very clear in Exodus 12, in Leviticus 19, in Ephesians 2. All through the scriptures, it's very clear that any human being on the planet can be grafted into Israel through the blood of Messiah, Yahshua, Jesus. Being filled with the Spirit, obeying His word. Whether you're Jew or Gentile, man or woman, adult or child, whether you were born in Africa or whether you were taken by the deep state to Antarctica and born there. Wherever you were born, okay? So that is what we need to remember and center upon, okay? If you have not read the extensive 17-part series I've written toward the top of my page called Reconciling Torah, Messiah, and Apostle Paul, please do so, because that's such an important thing to understand. It clears up a lot of misconception and confusion. So Israel, as you know, Netanyahu, yeah, very evil guy. There's a lot of Talmudic Jews, and then there's a lot of just atheist Jews, but there's a lot of Messianic Jews. There's those who truly love Yahshua, are filled with the Spirit and covered in His blood, that are in Israel right now, and they're growing. So there's all those different factors coming into play. And we need to remember that as wicked and as evil as Revelation tells us Israel becomes, and is very evil right now. I mean, they have one of the largest sodomite parades in Tel Aviv. And I've spoken directly to James Block, who lives in Jerusalem. And he says the oppression there is horrible just because of all the evil and deceit that's there in Jerusalem. But we have to remember that Yahshua is going to return. And there will be an actual millennial temple, a real beautiful temple that's described in the last 4 chapters of Ezekiel, that's described in the last few verses of Zechariah 14, that's described in Micah chapter 3, or Malachi chapter 3. I mean, there's so many things that are going to happen when He returns. We get caught up to be with Him. We celebrate the feast days in the heavenlies. We return with Him on that last great day. And with the breath of His mouth and the brightness of His coming, He destroys the wicked one. He takes over Jerusalem. Okay? And when He sits down, there's another earthquake right there on Mount Olives. And things are rebuilt and rededicated, probably during Hanukkah, after he returns on the last great day of Sukkot. So there's these multiple layers that people have to understand, rather than I see these two extremes of, oh, let's just completely support Israel, rah, 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 or, oh, Israel's completely evil, we need to wipe them off the face of the earth. Guys, both of those things are just way out of whack. And it's the scriptures and the spirit that keeps you on the straight and narrow. So one thing I just want to talk about is that there are, and I've mapped this out before, but if you think of the whole world, okay, there are these in cities and towns across the world. And that happened. Great. Okay. Come on. There. All right, there are cities and towns all across the world. And in these cities and towns all across the world, you have these tiny little covens or meeting places of these satanic pedophiles. Like what I talked with Timothy Holmseth, you know, these are on the city and local and county level that people sometimes aren't even aware of. But then there's larger meetings and covens of these satanic pedophiles on state levels, or, you know, that would be like the United States, or, you know, in different larger levels across the world. And then you have even larger covens, which are in different nations, okay? Like there's a huge one in the tunnels underneath Washington, D.C. They're in different nations. And then you have ones that are on continent levels, okay? That are even bigger on the 7 continents. But the main hub, I mean, where it's a global one, and again, I did this with, she's a good friend of mine. She and her husband are good friends of mine on Facebook, but she doesn't want me to reveal her identity. But when she was a little girl, she actually witnessed this child sex trafficking going on. She was a victim there as well. But the main global one is beneath the so-called Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Of course, it's not really the Temple Mount, and I don't really want to get into the details on that. It's actually just south of that in the city of David, in Gihon Spring. But in what people believe is the Temple Mount, and where the Jews want to reconstruct their temple, that is the main global hub for the child sex trafficking network, and it's going on beneath the Temple Mount to this day. And that's the main node there. So there, of course, the child sex trafficking and sacrifices that go on beneath the Temple Mount, that is in preparation for the son of perdition. If you haven't seen my video, Who is the Real Son of Perdition, please go check that one out. I'll link that video below this teaching. So basically, we have that main thing. Now, people have often asked me, you know, what is the difference between the Talmud and then the Torah? So the Talmud is man-made traditions which sanctions child sex. It's disgusting. The Talmud should be burned. Should have nothing to do with the Jews whatsoever. It's wholly Babylonian and pagan and sick. The Torah is what Yah gave to Moses, and actually before Moses it's been revealed. But the Torah is God's instructions, His commandments that lead to life. So that's the difference. So those who truly love Yahshua, are filled with the Spirit, and obey Him, and are covered in His blood, they seek to do the Torah, the handwritten instructions, whereas traditions of men are in Talmud. So Jesus, Yahshua, often came against the Talmud in His ministry in the first century. For instance, the Talmud said you cannot heal on the Sabbath day. Well, the Torah actually commands that you do good on the Sabbath. There's nothing saying you can't heal on the Shabbat. So the Talmud was a man-made tradition that contradicted the Torah. They tried to accuse Yahshua of doing wrong, and of course Yahshua rebuked them for it. In the Talmud, they said if you could pay a certain amount of gold at the temple, you could blaspheme your parents. Again, the Torah says honor your mother and your father, that your days may be long. So their tradition voided the Torah. You know, there's a bunch of just man-made instructions in the Talmud that some of the first century leadership were trying to use to control people. It's a control mechanism. So it's very similar to what, say, the Roman Catholic Church has done, where they have created their own man-made traditions, which are borrowed from a lot of pagan elements in the world to control the masses. The Protestant churches have carried a lot of those into their churches. And in fact, every religion on earth has these man-made traditions, but the Torah, from which, by the way, our Constitution was founded, the Torah is wholly from God. And this is what Hebrews 8 is all about how he writes these things on our hearts and our minds. So that's the difference between Talmudic and Torah. You don't throw out the entire Jewish people, just like you don't throw out all the people in the Roman Catholic Church. There's pure hearts in there that are coming out. And there's pure hearts coming out of all different types of places. And people that honestly are wicked and they're repenting and coming out too. I had a friend who got deep into Kabbalah. I mean, to the point where his mind snapped and he punched out his tooth. He got thrown out of his apartment. Kabbalah is holy witchcraft. It is very satanic, dark stuff. He repented of that stuff. Yah brought him out. And he became, his countenance started shining. He had a pure heart. He got rid of all the Talmudic Kabbalah stuff and was just devoted to Jesus, to Yahshua, to Torah. So God can deliver from any of this stuff, and we need to understand that. Okay, so this article that I'm going to be linking below the video, this was sent to me actually by a couple different subscribers. Which again, whenever I do a story, it always tends to be that there's confirmations from multiple subscribers who send me something that I'm actually looking at as well. So it's titled Miracle of the Ingathering at Dedication of Altar for Third Temple. On Monday, the last day of Hanukkah. Now again, they're doing a counterfeit Hanukkah. If you read John 10:22, the Feast of Dedication, Hanukkah, is a winter feast. We're not in winter time. The Jews, because they follow a Talmudic, pre-calculated Hillel 2 calendar developed in the 4th century, they're keeping the feast a month too early. And if you want to understand the true biblical calendar, I have a link right below this video. It's a very short, simple teaching of what the biblical calendar is. The real Hanukkah will be from January 1st to January 8th this year. And it's always different depending on the moon. And it's a lunar solar calendar. It's based in Genesis 1. Leviticus chapter 23, and in Exodus as well. Anyway, I'll post a video to the real calendar, but they're keeping a counterfeit Hanukkah, and on the last day of this counterfeit Hanukkah, the Sanhedrin called out to the 70 nations to join in the consecration of the altar of the Third Temple. Now, the Sanhedrin was reformed in 2008. These guys are very evil dudes. They wholly are loyal to the Talmud. They want to bring back what's known as the Noahide laws, which basically states that those that they consider Gentiles are not even allowed to keep the Sabbath, and if they try to, the penalty, according to the Talmud, is decapitation. That's why I've mentioned in previous videos that we're going to see a lot of great things in righteousness and possibly even satanic pedophiles being executed with guillotines, public executions. But eventually, it's going to be turned into a wrong purpose to persecute the saints, as prophesied in Revelation. If you want to learn more about that, watch my video, Prophecy, Pedophiles, Trump, X marks the spot. So this was a full-dress reenactment of the daily sacrifice. So it's not a real thing. It was just a rehearsal. Was held, and a representative of a South American nation who attended was the recipient of a miraculous fulfillment of the Messianic promise. No. They try to make it sound really beautiful. After months of intensive study, the Sanhedrin ordered a stone altar built, scheduling its dedication to take place on the last day of Hanukkah just outside the walls of the old city of Jerusalem. The square altar is 9 feet square and 5 feet high and is constructed of aerated concrete. The material was ruled to be fit for use in the temple. In the Talmud, so now they start quoting Talmud. You see, they don't base their stuff on Torah. They base it on Talmud, which is holy Babylonian and pagan. So this goes on and on. I'll let you read the rest of the article, and I'll link this below. So it's a rehearsal that they're doing because they will eventually get their third temple. Remember, the United Nations wants the third temple to be a temple to all nations, misrepresenting the scripture of the legitimate temple that Yahshua ruled and reigned from during the 1,000-year kingdom on earth. It's a counterfeit. It's a counterfeit. And, you know, they try to beautifully describe this in this article, just like when the actual abomination of desolation occurs, much of the world is going to look at it as a glorious thing. As this son of perdition takes his seat on the newly discovered Ark of the Covenant, and a glory cloud covers him, and he calls down fire from the sky, and people are going to be amazed by this guy. And in fact, many people now on the earth already are filled with that spirit of the Antichrist, because the hallmark of this son of perdition will be any way leads to heaven. All things are tolerated. The devil has no problem with you adopting any religion as long as you continue to allow selfishness in your heart. The only way to eradicate that, of course, is through the blood of Messiah, filled with the Spirit and obeying His word, His Torah. His instructions ordained to life. So this thing was done on the last day of Hanukkah, and the counterfeit Hanukkah, And it's just another indication of what's happening and ties in to all the satanic pedophilia that's going on. But as I've said, and again, you can watch that in my video, Prophecy, Pedophiles, Trump, X marks the spot. We're in a window where we have an opportunity to really fight back against these satanic pedophiles, to see them arrested and taken down, and an opportunity, if we're believers, to reach out to the lost. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing with not just investigative reporting on satanic pedophiles, but traveling across the nation, preaching the gospel. Speaking of which, I do now have an itinerary, Yah willing, of course. I do have an itinerary set up for my preaching schedule. And a lot of people have already offered to host me and to offer their homes for me to stay in. And but there's also other areas where I don't have anyone that's hosting me. And I just want to make my itinerary available to people in case anyone wants to try to host me or help me out. I know people always say, oh, Daniel, you need to be more cautious and not tell the world about what you're doing. The thing is, guys, the righteous are as bold as a lion, and the wicked spirits peep and mutter. And yes, I know there is the commandment from the Messiah that says, be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. But I try to do that to the best of my ability. But there comes a certain point where, being very open is very safe. And a lot of, even Fiona Barnett talks about how when SRA survivors come out and are very open about their story, it makes them safer. So the principle works in a lot of different ways. So my itinerary is as follows for the winter and spring quarter of 2019. I'll be traveling to these various areas. So from January 6th through the 20th, I'll be at San Diego, and I do have a family that's offered to let me stay with them. So I'll be preaching at the University of Southern California, or University of California, San Diego, UCSD. From the 20th through the 26th, I'll be back in Juneau, resting, and then just continuing with the investigative reporting that I do when I'm not on campus. And then from January the 27th through February 10th, I'll be temping Phoenix at the Arizona State University. One guy said he'd offered to put me up in a hotel, although on Shabbat I don't want to be in a hotel because I don't want to make anyone work, so I try to get either an Airbnb or stay with somebody. But Arizona State, and still need a host for that, if anyone's willing. And then from the 10th of February through the 16th, I'm back in Juneau with investigative reporting and rest. And then from February the 17th through March the 3rd, I'll be going to universities across Florida. And I don't have any hosts in Florida yet. So, and I know I do have a lot of subscribers in Florida, but universities in Florida. And I'm praying about doing a protest at the Disney World theme park, but we'll see how that goes because they're a privately owned company, so we wouldn't be able to stand as close as like I was able to stand in front of the White House. We'd have to stand way off the actual property, so I don't know how effective that would be. Okay, so that'll be from February 12th to March 3rd. From February 17th to March 3rd. And then from March 3rd to March 9th, back in Juneau, which is where my home is. Continue to do investigative reporting on satanic pedophiles. From March 10th through March 24th, I'll be at Penn State, Pennsylvania. I do have a couple that's offered to host me, but they live like a couple hours away from Penn State, so I'll probably just wind up spending Shabbat and the weekends with them when I'm there. So if anyone lives closer to Penn State, would love a host for there. And then, let's see, from March 24th through the 30th, back in Juneau. I'll just put BIJ, investigative reporting. And then from March 30th, from March 31st, all the way till April 17th, I'll be in Southern Virginia at William Marion Law School, preaching there in Southern Virginia. And I do have a host there now, so that's all taken care of. Then from April 18th through the 28th, which is actually Passover week, I'll be in West Monroe, Louisiana, celebrating Passover with a bunch of subscribers that are there, and then preaching at LSU, Louisiana State University, during that point. From April 28th through May the 12th, I'll be at the University of Buffalo. And then from May the 12th through May the 19th, I'm actually going up to Nova Scotia, Canada, not to preach, but there's a subscriber there that wants me to visit with him and do some ministry there as well. But I won't be doing any preaching in Nova Scotia. And then from May the 19th, I'm running out of room here. I'll put all this below the video as well. From May the 19th through May the 26th, I will be back in Juneau, again for rest and recuperation. It's Memorial Day weekend that week as well, and doing investigative reporting on satanic pedophiles. And then from May the 26th through June the 10th, I will be at the University of Washington in Seattle. Their last day of classes is June the 10th. And, or excuse me, it's the Friday before, but I'm staying through June the 10th because that Sunday, June the 9th, is Pentecost, and I don't want to be flying on that day. It's a high Sabbath. So I'll be staying until Monday, June 10th. And then on June 10th, returning back to Juneau for the summertime, where I'll continue to be doing investigative reporting on satanic pedophiles, etc. And I might still be doing preaching during the summer, not necessarily on colleges, but different places around the United States. We'll see how that goes. So that's my schedule. So if you want to host me, if you're a married couple or a single man, then let me know, and my contact information is always below. If you want to support me financially, my PayPal link's right below the video. You can click on that. I've got a Patreon. You can pledge any amount you want. I have a P.O. box that you can send letters and contributions to. I've got that link to the White House petition. Please sign it, and a bunch of other links. Thank you guys. God bless you. Shalom, shalom.